Welcome to our PowerPoint. What every Catholic husband and wife need to understand about all contraceptives, natural family planning, and Catholic teaching. This will be in 6 parts totaling 16 minutes, so we will suggest you take some breaks.
Part 1. God's Plan for Love and Sex. Part 2. The Church's Current Teaching.
Part 3. We will explain the effectiveness and risks of all contraceptives and fertility awareness methods.
Part 4. We answer. What are Catholic husbands and wives to do?
Part 5. How to learn and practice NFP. Part 6. Good news from people who use NFP.
Part 1. God's Plan for Love and Sex. In the beginning, God made man, and then he made woman with a rib from the man. God said the man will leave his mother and father and will become one flesh with his woman. God blessed the man and woman and told them to be fruitful and multiply. All of this is from Genesis in the Old Testament. We know that God is love and God is the truth, and God had a plan. He planned to have the man and woman be attracted to be one flesh and to have nothing separate them and to have them to have children. God's design was for sex to be unitive and procreative.
Part 2. The Church's current teaching. To this day, the Church is taught that nothing is to separate the unitive and procreative purposes of the marital act. So let's read from Humanae Vitae, an encyclical by Pope Paul VI in 1968.
Marriage is the wise institution of God the Creator. His design allows husband and wife to develop that union of two persons in which they perfect one another. Marriage, for those who are baptized, is a sacrament.
It is a love which is total, a special form of personal friendship. Whoever really loves his partner loves not only for what he receives, but loves that partner for the partner's own sake. Married love is also faithful and exclusive of all other, and this until death.
Marriage and conjugal love are by their nature ordained toward the procreation and education of children. With regard to physical, economical, psychological, and social conditions, parenthood is exercised by those who decide to have more children, and by those who, for serious reasons, decide not to have additional children for either a certain or an indefinite period of time.
The Church, nevertheless, teaches that each and every marital act must retain its relationship to the procreation of human life. And if each of the essential qualities, the unitive and the procreative, is preserved, the use of marriage retains its sense of mutual love and its ordination to parenthood.
Any action which either before, at the moment of, or after sexual intercourse is specifically intended to prevent procreation, whether as an end or as a means, is not in accord with God's design and is excluded.
Another effect that gives cause for alarm is that a man who grows accustomed to the use of contraceptive methods may forget the reference due to a woman, and, disregarding her physical and emotional equilibrium, reduce her to being a mere instrument for the satisfaction of his own desires, and no longer considering her as his partner, whom he should surround with care and affection.
However, if therefore there are well-grounded reasons for spacing births, the Church teaches that married people may then take advantage of the natural cycles and engage in marital intercourse only during those times that are infertile, thus controlling birth in a way which does not in the least offend the moral principles which we have just explained. So that is why the Catholic Church has approved NFP while not approving contraceptives. Humanae Vitae confirms God's plan and restates what the teaching of the Church has always been. Church teaching on this issue remains until this date and will not change in the future. Humanae Vitae also appeals to scientists, especially Catholic scientists, to secure basis for the chaste limitation of offspring. We have already seen this in the development of hormonal monitoring to predict and confirm ovulation.
Part 3. The effectiveness and risks of all contraceptives and fertility awareness methods. The reasons to use NFP based on effectiveness and safety. In 2014, the Center for Disease Control reported on the typical effectiveness of contraceptives and fertility awareness methods. On July 14, 2021, the FDA issued a similar report.
The first group of contraceptives are synthetic steroid implants and IUDs. Some can remain in the woman's body for 3 to 10 years. These are most effective. Less than 1 woman in 200 will become pregnant in a year of use, but they are extremely dangerous. Next are other hormonal methods, including the pill, injections, and patches. The CDC reports that an average of 9 women per 100 will get pregnant in a year. Next are the barrier methods, condoms, ring, and diaphragm with spermicides. In typical use, 22 to 25 women per 100 will get pregnant within a year.
We can't use CDC fertility awareness methods because CDC reports that condoms are used on fertile days. The FDA doesn't compare contraceptives with fertility awareness methods. But Catholics don't use condoms. They abstain only on fertile days. Fortunately, most of the NFP methods have kept statistics. Billings, Marquette, Symptothermal, Creighton, and others are excellent fertility awareness methods. They have studies ranging from 98 to 99% for typical use effectiveness. Marquette is at 99.5%. So, properly taught and practiced, NFP will result in less than 2 pregnancies in 100 woman years.
Besides effectiveness, it is important to consider the risks of side effects of the methods. Neither fertility awareness nor barrier methods have any side effects other than sexually transmitted diseases if intercourse is with an infected partner. But hormonal contraceptive use results in high increased risks of diseases. We list a few: breast cancer, cervical cancer, cancer of the liver, inflammatory bowel disease, multiple sclerosis, bone fractures, depression, mood disorders and suicides, fatty weight gain, female sexual dysfunction, strokes, heart attacks and blood clotting, abortion, exploitation of women, weakening of marriage, increase in divorce, disastrous effects on children, and much more. See the recent study by Williams et al. And Lineker.
It doesn't mean a woman will get all of these diseases. It does mean that she is a lot more likely to develop them. Be mindful. Hormonal contraceptives are synthetic steroids, and yet, although physicians are reluctant to use steroids on athletes, some prescribe them to shut down a woman's reproductive system for 3 to 10 years. Catholics also have to consider the following. Hormonal contraceptives act as abortifacients. The hormonal contraceptives sometimes prevent ovulation, and they also may prevent sperm motility. When they do, they act as contraceptives, but they also cause embryocide of the embryos when they do not prevent ovulation because they thin the endometrium of the uterus, which prevents implantation. The FDA reports that IUDs and emergency contraceptives all prevent implantation. That causes the death of the embryo after fertilization and conception. The CDC fails to mention this issue. This fact was a problem for pharmaceutical companies. So they supported physicians, and in 1965, ACOG changed the definition of pregnancy to start on implantation and not what it had been forever. The pregnancy begins upon contraception, which occurs at fertilization when there is an embryo with a DNA different than either the mother or the father. ACOG now says contraception is a process which is not complete until implantation. That can be 7 to 9 days after fertilization and conception.
Part 4. What are Catholic husbands and wives to do? Based upon the above, what are married Catholic men and women to do? We have seen that hormonal implants and IUDs are the most effective, but they are against Catholic teaching. Also, they put the woman and the family at great risk.
The Catholic man has no choice but to tell his beloved wife, "I love you and I can't justify putting you at risk for serious diseases so that I might enjoy intercourse." We can't use hormonal contraceptives.
The Catholic woman must be prepared to tell her husband, "I love you, but I must be here for you and our children and future children. I agree we can't take the risks to my health from hormonal contraceptives."
No Catholic man can allow his wife to take the risks of hormonal contraceptives on his behalf, even if he has to live in a celibate marriage. But that won't be necessary.
What about barrier methods? Both the Catholic husband and wife must understand that using barrier methods is also contrary to church teaching, and that they risk both their good marriage and their eternal life by not following church teaching. Further, they should know that NFP, when practiced correctly, is far more effective than any of the barrier methods.
Part 5. How to learn and practice NFP. First, make a firm commitment to learn and practice NFP. You have to be serious. There are rules and you have to follow them. This isn't her responsibility. This requires teamwork.
Learn the basic science of NFP first. The basic science was discovered and developed by Drs. John and Evelyn Billings in the 1950s. All NFP methods are based on this science. It is based on the sensation of the vulva, which indicates the presence or absence and texture of cervical mucus. Other methods have added to this basic science with daily temperature readings and hormonal monitoring.
The key of the basic science is to predict and to confirm ovulation. Sperm can live for 5 days, and so there should be no intercourse 5 days before projected ovulation if the couple wants to avoid pregnancy. Because the ovum, the egg, lives for only 12 to 24 hours after ovulation, it is safe to have intercourse from 3 days after ovulation until the start of the next menstrual cycle.
Understand that a woman with a regular 28-day cycle will be potentially fertile for 3 to 4 days of menstruation, 5 to 6 days before ovulation, and 3 days after ovulation. An average of 13 days every 4 weeks. That leaves 15 days of infertile days, an average of 4 days per week.
Part 6. Good news from people who use NFP. We told you that we would close with good news. In March 2017, Frontiers in Public Health reported the results of a study of 2,560 users of NFP. They had been using a symptothermal method. This was not a Catholic study. Half had tried contraception before.
Most men and 95% of women said that using NFP has helped them to know their body better. Large majorities of both men and women stated NFP helped them improve their relationship. 95% of men and women felt their partner's interest was very important or important. 70% felt it helped them talk to their partner about sexuality.
63% of men and women felt their sex life had improved. Most were having sex 4 or more times per month. 74% of both women and men were satisfied or very satisfied with their frequency of sexual intercourse. We close by saying that learning to work together with NFP is the most important thing you will do together in your marriage.